Hey, what's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to cover one of the most terrifying parts for any new tech person getting into this industry and getting their first job. You've passed the interview or interviews. You have arrived at the point where they're either asking you about your salary requirements or they've actually given you a written offer of some kind that has a number on it. And that's kind of where we're starting here. I'm going to try to equip you to deal with that situation and get the most total compensation that you can for the position. That is your job. So, why negotiate at all? A lot of us have a sort of idea that negotiation is dirty or rude or negative, and it really plays into the employer's hands pretty nicely. They are negotiating with you regardless of what you might think about it. And if you just take the first offer you're given or you try to like lowball yourself, you're just hurting yourself. There's just no reason to not get the most you can because you're trading your skills, your experience, your time, and it's opportunity cost, right? I mean, every minute you are working for someone else, you're not working for yourself, you're not spending time with your family, you're not on vacation. So you should get the most you can for it. So the important thing to realize is that it's actually not difficult. You don't need to become an expert like hostage negotiator and learn all these techniques and tactics. Just a few basic pointers can help you make a lot of extra money. So even if you secure just a little bit of extra money for yourself during the negotiation for your next job, that money compounds. It's going to come in every year. It's going to be invested in things like your 401k. You might even buy some after-tax investments with it. So those $5,000 after 10 years or so, presuming you never get another job and you never get another raise, that 5 grand turns into more like 80 grand instead of 50 grand. Likewise, doubling that to an extra 10 grand a year, you're looking at something that's approaching 200 grand in extra wealth. So this little bit of extra that you can get for yourself actually amounts to quite a bit over the course of your working life. The other reason is that a lot of the time it kind of sets the course for your career. So if you lowball yourself in the beginning, you might end up working a couple extra years to make up for that, because generally your trajectory at a company will be fairly sort of a linear trajectory upwards in terms of compensation. And if you start lower, it's simply going to take much longer to get to a high salary. You'll have less time at a high salary, and you will make less over the course of your career. So setting yourself up right from the beginning is really important. So there's a few kind of counterintuitive things that are important to realize. A lot of us have a weird like emotional thing because our parents were employees and we've been trained to be employees. We think about this in a way that's really advantageous to a business instead of ourselves. So first of all is the whole like, oh, negotiation is weird and dirty and like only poor people do that or whatever. Business people are always negotiating. That's one of the values that they bring to a company. One of the things that might surprise you is that when you're negotiating and you're asking for a little bit more salary, those costs are actually a tiny fraction of your total compensation. The total actually like what's called the fully loaded cost of an employee, so the actual cost of hiring you, and an even smaller fraction of the total budget for that team, that department, or the company as a whole. So the people that are actually looking at and approving these things, like HR and finance people, they are used to seeing much larger sums of money than you're probably asking for. So you're not going to like horrify or surprise even anyone by asking for 5 or 10, or if you're more senior, an extra 50 grand. The second strange thing that is true is that you are working for yourself during this negotiation, but the person you're negotiating with, which is usually a hiring manager, is working for the company. They're not spending their own money. So you kind of have the upside here because you care more. They are simply spending a budget. And the weird thing about a budget is they actually might be more successful politically inside the company if they spend more of it. If you don't use your whole budget in a year, occasionally that budget gets reduced. So a manager tends to think about, like, they have to spend their budget so they can ask for more the next year, and then they're slightly more important in the company. And this is really weird, and the incentives are all wrong, but this is just how it is in many companies, especially the larger they get. So you asking for more money might be great for the hiring manager. Another fact is that they want to come to an agreement with you. So a sum that might seem like a lot of money to you, like, hey, I'd really love to start at 90 instead of 80, is not only is it a tiny sum for them, and it's not even the hiring manager's money, so they don't have a huge incentive to not spend it and save it, but that company has already spent a huge amount of money, well, time, to talk to you, to interview you. And no one wants to waste that. If several engineers have talked to you over the course of weeks, and you've probably spent like 1 or 2 days of company time plus all the admin stuff on the back end, plus the possible recruiter fees and the kind of stuff that they're paying for, you might already be at the point where they've spent $15,000 or $20,000 to talk to you. And if you simply get up and walk away, that money is wasted for them. So that's a big incentive to come to an agreement with you, and you can use that. You should use that during the negotiation. Finally, this last sort of tip is in here. It's kind of out of place, but I didn't know where else to put it. Email is best for this. Most of us are not born negotiators, and most of us, especially on the technical side, aren't like so talented at this that we can do really well against a business person whose life has revolved around this for a long time, whose work life depends on this skill. So trying to do as much of the negotiation phase over email as possible is good for you, because it removes a lot of the tremendous like emotional and social pressure that you'll be feeling during a negotiation when you're like, oh shit, this interview just graduated to a salary negotiation. That can be terrifying, and the pressure can be enormous. And you still have to function, and you still have to talk in real time. Email removes some of that pressure and can make this a lot easier. Now, email will be the default way that you're communicating, occasionally phone. If a company like pivots from an interview right to a salary negotiation, it's okay to say, let's talk about this a little bit later. I need to, I really liked talking to you guys, but I need a little bit of time to think, and let's pick this up again, tomorrow via phone or email. It's okay to buy time and space for yourself if you absolutely need it. So everyone thinks in terms of salary, but you need to reprogram your brain to think about total compensation. It's not just about the salary. And the salary is often sort of this distraction because a company knows that everyone's focused on getting a big salary. So the other parts of compensation are actually where they can kind of win. So they'll take away or just won't offer certain stock options if you've asked for a higher salary. So you should widen your focus and have salary be one important, but still only one part of the entire package. So think total compensation package. Repeat that 10 times to yourself. Total compensation package. That's what matters here. Salary is a part of that, but obviously bonus, yearly bonus, performance bonuses are a part of that. Stock options if it's a publicly traded company. Healthcare, if you're in the US, then unfortunately you still have to fight for your own healthcare, and that means being able to price and value that as part of the total compensation package and negotiate if you need to, although many companies aren't that flexible about the healthcare plans they offer. Vacation, another big one. There's usually a lot of room on the vacation end to negotiate, which most people never realize and most people never try. And then there's these sort of extras. Some of these are intangible, like what are the working conditions like, and is that a good fit for you? Is it high pressure? Is there casual dress? I mean, most engineering places are going to have a tech team that's comes in jeans and t-shirts every day. What's the company culture like? Office perks like free coffee, beer on tap, a full bar, on-site chef, ping pong tables. These are often like nice to haves, but you should value them much lower than they will try to sell them as, right? You're there to work, and you're there to make money, and you're there to have financial compensation and sort of lifestyle compensation for your time. So those things are smaller. Likewise, there are more tangible things like how much time does it take you to commute every day? Do they have work from home days? Is remote work a possibility for the long term? Do they offer daycare and other small perks? So expand your thinking from salary, how much do I make every year on paper, to total compensation. How much value and wealth am I getting every year? For your negotiation, everything is fluid, and that's what you need to remember. You need to find a balance of compensation, a total compensation package that works for both sides. They will have limitations on some things, like you can't just ask for all of your compensation to be in salary because they don't want to spend all of it in salary. This is a really silly metaphor, but I actually found it sort of worked for this. If you're looking for value, you can think of that as like you're thirsty and you need some water. The water is the value. And the company that might hire you has several different cups, which would be like the parts of the compensation package. And if you need some total amount of water or value that's bigger than like their salary cup, well, that's fine. It's got to come from the vacation cup or from the lifestyle cup. Like, well, that's fine. Let's just tack on an extra work from home day every week. So these things are fluid, and you're kind of trying to balance things across the whole compensation package. In this dweeby metaphor, that would be the cups, without trying to drink more than is in each cup. There are hard limitations on some of these things. So I hope that helps you kind of get the right mindset for this. Finally, emotions. This is kind of a powerful thing. A lot of us have weird emotions about negotiation, about money in general, about the employer-employee relationship. So don't get freaked out. This does take some practice to become comfortable with. Don't get caught up in the sort of adversarial nature of a negotiation. You can always stay friendly, positive, and professional. It's just a normal part of business. This isn't weird, even though in a way it's a kind of an important fight that you're in. You always have to stay cool. You can't let the pressure get to you. And you got to remember, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. It's totally normal, and you'll actually be respected for it by business people because that's kind of what they do. That's like in their wheelhouse. So nothing bad is going to happen to you as a result of asking for more or trying to negotiate more. So the first component, and arguably the most important one, is initial salary. Um, Initial salary is the sort of thing that it's very easy to hyper focus on, but you need to just see it as one important part. So the way that you scope this out for yourself, what your expectation is to put your finger on the pulse of the current market. That means for the area you're in, for the skills you have, for the level of experience you have, for the type of position you're interviewing for, get the facts. What are people making in those positions? Services like Glassdoor.com and Payscale.com, you can use them for free and you can get pretty valuable, more or less realistic information from them. For smaller markets, it's a little bit hit or miss, but certainly any large US metro area, you're going to get fairly accurate information. So then you kind of know the salary curve for what you should be making. Where like, the average salary is going to be something like, let's say 100 grand. Well, then you should be aiming for something like 20% above that reasonable baseline that you're hoping to make. So when it does come time to give them a number for what you're expecting, or when you're talking to a recruiter for what you realistically will accept, aim for about 20% above that number. And then you can negotiate down from there and grab sort of extra value from other parts of the compensation package. Which brings us to 3, which is never be the first to give a number. This is probably the most popular negotiation advice, and it really is useful to be able to stall this out as long as possible. You want them to give you a number or a range first. Occasionally that's unavoidable, but don't let the tension get to you too much. Basically, what you want them to give you is a salary range for the position if they won't give you a specific first number. You can say, that's fine. I mean, I'm flexible. I'm thinking about total compensation package. What's the salary range as a part of this compensation package for this specific position? And that can often induce somebody to give you a number that they wouldn't have given you otherwise. And then once you've done that, once there is a number in play, never accept the first offer. This can feel weird again because here this company is offering you a lot of money and it's so wonderful and you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and isn't it rude to like just turn down this money that someone's offering you? But the reality is you're not going to ruin your chances or insult anyone with this. It's a normal part of the negotiation process and you shouldn't feel weird about it. So don't accept the first offer and then just say, that's interesting. That's an interesting offer. Can we talk a little bit about how flexible you are on the salary number? I'm seeing a lot of people that are kind of anxious to hire on this, and I'm seeing salaries that are between 5 and 10 hire. I really do like your company, and I'm interested in the work I would do, and everyone I've met on the team is great. I would just love if you came up on the salary a little bit. Yeah, blah, you know? So you can always keep things moving and don't accept the first offer. Some useful phrases, just because I got started with that just now. When you don't want to give a number yet, because often they will try to like pressure you into giving a number, and they are not averse to actually putting a lot of pressure on you to do that. And just repeatedly saying, oh no, but we really need a number. Oh, we can't move forward unless you give us a number. It's all BS to try to get you to say a number first. And yes, it feels dirty if you're like an engineer and you don't come from this like business negotiation side and skill set, but that's just what's going to happen. So you need to find some ways to repeatedly deflect that. So some useful things are saying like, oh, at this stage, I'm a lot more interested in seeing if we're a fit for each other before we start talking about numbers. What are some of those important things that you're hoping that someone that gets hired for this position is going to actually accomplish for the company? And then you've deflected it, they can tell you a little bit about that, and then you can talk about how you would do that exactly in the words that they gave you. If they give you that first offer and you're trying to figure out how to turn it down, like I said before, you can be like, oh, 95 is definitely interesting, but it's not quite where I need to be to move forward with this. How flexible are you on that number? And then just be silent and wait. So, kind of put the pressure a little bit on them to come back with something that's more interesting. Shifting to another compensation type, if they really are at a hard max for something and they say, listen, we can't go higher than 95, that's the max for this position, and it simply will not get approved, that's totally fine. It's not quite what I had in mind for salary, but with the right compensation package, that could still be an attractive offer. And then you just go to the next most important thing for you, like how much vacation comes with that. Well, that's fine. How about if we bump the vacation by an extra week to make up for the extra like 10 grand that I'm seeing for other positions in terms of salary. Huge thanks to Patio11 for these. He's on Hacker News and he's on Kelzumius, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, software. I put the link in the description, but that was one of the first great articles I read on this when I first started getting into sort of more mid-level and more senior Linux negotiation situations. Practice this with somebody if you can. This is really, really important. Being able to stay cool and super friendly and appear super flexible and appear to be fine with the restrictions, hard restrictions that they end up placing on you after you've already negotiated up, 5 or 10 grand. Another type of compensation is stock. It's often part of the package at a larger company, and this is kind of a complicated subject and you need to research it. So please research it if that's part of the compensation package at a company you are interviewing at. Sometimes there's like stock grants. Sometimes there's some stock that vests over time, which means you can't immediately sell it. How to value your stock offers isn't totally straightforward. Like, what kind of stock is it? What kind of share price? It's always useful to ask about this, even if you already know that it's not going to be part of the package. Because just saying that this is part of the package you expect gives you a higher value that you can get from the rest of the compensation package. Because then you can say, oh, that's no problem. I'm sure we can make it up with, we can bump the salary slightly to make up for the lack of stock options that are part of this compensation package. No problem at all. What you're really doing is just asking for more money, but you're doing it in a way that makes it much harder to just say no to because you're trading. You're trying to like equalize things. Healthcare in the US, we're unfortunately the only first world country where you actually have to negotiate this for yourself, as I said, but it is what it is right now. This is a little bit bureaucratic and complicated, and you'll have to do a tiny bit of boring reading, probably about an hour or so. Have the HR department send you details for the healthcare plans that they offer and read through them. Know what the deductibles are. If an FSA or an HSA comes with those, learn a little bit about what those things are. If you haven't already, watch my What Every Sysadmin Needs to Know About Money video because I go into some of these things. Again, this is relevant only for the US market. In most other markets, there will just be health insurance that everyone in your country has, and you don't need to worry about it. It can be useful if you find a good moment, like if you're having lunch with an interviewer or something, to ask them for an honest opinion about like, so how's the healthcare here? Like, are you happy with it? Is there anything that's like, have you found it to be really expensive to get like prescription meds or anything, but do read through this stuff yourself. HR will be happy to send this stuff to you because it is part of the compensation package. You absolutely have to know what you're getting because it's part of what they're giving you. Vacation. Vacation is wonderful, and Americans don't take enough of it. It's going to keep you sane, it's going to keep you productive, it's going to prevent burnout, and besides all of these wonderful things from both the employee and the company side, from the company's perspective, it really keeps employee productivity up and churn down. Churn is really expensive, the rate of people leaving each year. In Europe, you're much less flexible on this. It'll just be between probably 4 and 6 weeks, depending on seniority. In some places, a little more, some places, a little less. In the US, you should be aiming for approximately the same. You should start with really high expectations and then let them negotiate you down. So I generally will say, oh, at my last work, well, this is true, at my last job, I had 5 weeks, and I'd love to, keep that around the same. I felt that was a good place to be. A slight bump, of course, would be nice. And if they say, oh, there's no way we can do that, we have it's 2 weeks, you can say, well, that's fine. I mean, I still think that, 3 weeks is a lot more fair. You're just going to get more productivity that way. People need time off. In tech in general, this is a lot more flexible than in other industries. And if they've got like a hard limit and they really are just like, no, it's 2 weeks, then you can say, no problem, but that's a lot of extra working time, and total compensation is just going to have to be higher. So better stock options, higher salary, better 401k match, that kind of thing. Extras, working conditions, and company culture. These are less of the total value, but they do make a big difference. So is the company casual? Do people swear? Are they cool? Are they smart? Is there constant stress? Is everything constantly on fire? How formal do you notice managers being with other employees? What kind of amenities are there at the office? Do people stay and drink beers from the tap after work? Is there a ping pong table? Do you care if there's a ping pong table? Don't let yourself be wooed by all this crap, because it's usually a very, free soda is a very cheap way to steal $5,000 from you a year. From your total compensation, if you think that's super cool. Just buy the soda yourself, Commute and other specific needs factor into this. I think commute's a good talking point during the negotiation. You can always say, this means I'm going to be in transit for an extra 2 hours. I got to drive here, wear and tear on my car. It's time I'm not using for other stuff. I really love being with my family. I'm going to need a little bit more compensation because this is a much higher cost for my life. I would love to work with you guys, and I'm super pumped about the projects we've talked about, but having an extra 2 hours a day go to the commute, I have to recoup that money somewhere. Bonus structures. So what does the bonus structure at a company look like? These are sort of averages. I've talked to several people in this industry, and this seems to be a good proxy both across large and small companies for what this will look like. Junior level positions, you're probably not going to get a yearly bonus. You may get a performance bonus if you really kick ass during the year. For mid-level positions, you're looking at 5% all the way through like principal engineer or architect positions, where you're looking at probably 10 to 15% performance bonus. So that's 10 to 15% of your base salary, not of your total compensation. If you're a manager, that's higher. So manager, director, VP are compensated much more highly. They're also much more stressed out in general, but that should give you some idea. It's definitely something you should ask about. Ongoing salary adjustments. Your initial salary is only sort of valid, quote unquote, for the first year. The company, well, even if it's a good company, they often sort of, shall we say, conveniently forget to automatically renegotiate that stuff with you every year. So it's totally expected that you will go to your manager and say, hey, I'd like to talk about some salary adjustments. There is a thing called inflation, and it makes money less valuable every year. You should stay informed about the market that you're in. What's the market like for your position, in your location, for your approximate experience level, and the skills you've got? You should know, pay scale, Glassdoor, etc., what other companies are paying. It costs a tremendous amount for a company to hire new people. Losing people, especially tech people, is painful. There's a lot of knowledge that goes away, and getting a new tech person up to 100% productivity. Managers know that that takes between 3 and 6 months. It's a brutal cost, and if a fully loaded cost of an engineer is like 20 grand, that means they are losing somewhere on the order of six figures, like 100 grand or more, just getting somebody up to speed. So you leaving is real painful, a lot more painful than paying you an extra 15 grand a year. Salary adjustments come in different ways. Managers can spin this however they want, but the idea is you have more responsibilities, you have more experience, you have more total compensation. So it could come in the form of a promotion or some sort of like title bump. You can expect somewhere between 10 and 20% increase in your base salary. A market adjustment, if you notice like, wow, my position is getting way more money this year than last year in the market that I'm in, you can say, listen, I really like it here. I would love to stay, but the salary, I can't stay here at this salary because it's just, I'm leaving so much money on the table. So that would be like a market adjustment that your manager might be able to make. And then a cost of living increase. Most companies, this is the raise, quote unquote, that employees get if they don't ask for anything over that. But you should know that you're not like relegated to the cost of living increase every year. Promotions and market adjustments are perfectly legit, and managers should be overjoyed to work with you to make that happen. The last bit of total compensation, I want to just mention it here because I sort of factor it into the base salary, but a 401k, a retirement account of some kind, applicable usually only in the US, that is also a part of your salary, specifically the 401k match. That is important for your retirement. A company that provides one, that should just be something on your list. It doesn't fit neatly into one of these categories, but I just want to mention that it's there. You should ask about what their 401k or their retirement plan looks like, and what specifically their match is, which means what percentage of your salary will they match. So if you're making 100 grand and they have a 5% match, that means they will match your contributions to that retirement account up to $5,000. Definitely take advantage of that. That's free money, and that is factored into your cost as an employee. So if you're not taking advantage of it, you're leaving money on the table. Don't do that. Finally, always be looking. Even if you're not planning on leaving a company to go work somewhere else, there's nothing wrong with passively looking for work. You're a professional, and understanding your market is just part of what professionals do. That's your responsibility. Actually participating in interviews once or twice a year, that is going to another company and actually going through with the interview process, that keeps your interviewing skills sharp, and it also keeps your self-confidence up. Like, you know that you can get work somewhere else because you're sort of casually involved in that process of looking, evaluating other companies. It's just part of what you do. That translates into always negotiating from a position of strength when you're talking about salary adjustments, raises, and title bumps, and more responsibility and moving up in the company, if that's what you want. Your willingness and ability to walk away is your leverage during these negotiations, and always having an idea of what the market is like, what other people are making, what other work there is out there, if there's projects that you're interested in working on, technologies that other companies are working with that you're interested in learning. Those are great to know about. Allows you to negotiate from a much, ever so muchly much stronger position. So I hope that's been useful. This is definitely stuff that I wish I had known sooner. Over the course of the years, actually some amazing managers and other tech people, both in real life and on blogs and across the internet, have taught me these things. I'm super thankful to all of them. Many of the quotes and stuff in this were inspired by Patio 11. You can find them on Hacker News and on the website that I've linked in the description. Many thanks to all of those people. You've made me happier, and I make way more money because of you. So thanks.